"The table is for customers, not for people like him," said the manager of the five-star restaurant, blocking Marcus's path as he tried to serve table 12. The woman sitting alone at the table watched everything in silence. Isabella Rodriguez was 32 years old and had just witnessed something that made her completely rethink her social experiment. For the past 6 months, she had been posing as a single mother in financial difficulty, frequenting simple places in search of a man who could be a real father to her 5-year-old twins, Sofia and Diego. But today, she had decided to try something different. Dressed as usual in simple clothes and with her hair unkempt, she had reserved a table at the most expensive restaurant in town using a false name. She wanted to see how the men who worked there would treat a customer who appeared to have no resources. Marcus Thompson, 28, held the tray with his hands trembling slightly. Not from fear, but from a restrained anger he knew well after years of serving in establishments where his skin color was seen before anything else. "Mr. Patterson, this is her table. You specifically asked to be served by him. Impossible. Customers of this caliber don't ask to be served by, well, you understand." The manager turned to Isabella with a forced smile. "I apologize for the embarrassment, ma'am. I'll send our best waiter immediately." Isabella remained silent, observing something that reminded her of her own childhood. The daughter of Mexican immigrants who started out washing dishes. She knew exactly what it was like to be judged by her appearance. The difference was that now, at 32, she ran a technology empire, valued at $200 million. "Actually," she said, finally breaking the silence, "I specifically asked to be served by Marcus. If that's a problem, I can leave." The manager was visibly uncomfortable. A customer paying $400 for a meal was always right, even if her choices were unusual. Marcus approached the table, maintaining his professional demeanor despite the public humiliation. Isabella noticed something in his eyes that most people would miss, an unshakable dignity, as if he had faced much worse situations and emerged stronger. "Good evening, ma'am. How can I help you?" His voice was calm, polite, without a trace of resentment for what had just happened. Isabella ordered the most expensive menu, discreetly watching as Marcus carefully noted every detail with professional care. When he walked away to place the order, she discreetly took out her cell phone and sent a quick message to her personal assistant. "I need complete information about Marcus Thompson, waiter at La Bernardine. Urgent." The reply came within minutes. Marcus Thompson, 28 years old. Degree in education with a specialization in early childhood education. Works 2 jobs to support his younger sister who is studying medicine. Lost his parents in a car accident 3 years ago. Impeccable record. No debts other than his sister's student loans. Isabella almost dropped her phone. An educator working as a waiter to pay for his sister's education. While other men she had met during her experiment talked only about cars, gambling, and conquests, she had found someone who sacrificed his own dreams for his family. When Marcus returned with the appetizer, something unexpected happened. A small child at a nearby table began to cry inconsolably. The parents looked desperate. Other customers showed irritation, but Marcus did something no one expected. Marcus quietly crouched down next to the table where the child was crying, completely ignoring the disapproving looks from the other waiters. "Hi, little one." "What's his name?" he asked in a soft voice that made the boy stop crying instantly. Isabella watched, fascinated. In a few seconds, Marcus had transformed the tense atmosphere in the restaurant. The boy, about 4 years old, pointed to the plate in front of him with a grimace of disgust. "Don't you like broccoli?" Marcus asked, smiling. "You know what I learned? In school, if you pretend they're little trees in a magical forest, they taste much better. Want to try?" The child's parents looked at each other in surprise as their son began to eat, pretending he was a dinosaur in the broccoli forest. Other customers smiled, the tension in the room completely dissipating. "Thompson." The manager's harsh voice cut through the moment. "You're here to serve, not to play teacher with customers, children." Marcus stood up calmly, but Isabella noticed the flash of pain in his eyes. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said, returning to her table with unwavering professionalism. "Sorry for the interruption," he said quietly, refilling her water glass. "Don't apologize. What you did was beautiful." Isabella watched him closely. "You have a way with children." For a moment, Marcus's professional mask faltered. "I worked in a daycare center during college. Children are ... They're honest. They don't judge you by the color of your skin or your suit. Only Ruby Kiss has the luxurious texture that glides on. Job." Isabella felt her heart tighten. Here was a man with a degree in education, clearly talented with children, waiting tables because society didn't offer him the opportunities he deserved. "Marcus Thompson, table 12, in my office now." Manager Patterson's voice echoed through the restaurant. Marcus closed his eyes briefly, as if preparing for another public humiliation. "Excuse me, ma'am, I'll be back in a few minutes." Isabella discreetly followed him to an area near the office where she could hear the conversation. "How many times do I have to tell you that you're not a babysitter?" Patterson yelled. "This is a respectable institution, not a playground, and that customer at table 12 is complaining about your inappropriate behavior." Isabella almost stood up to contradict the lie, but something made her hesitate. She wanted to see how Marcus would react. "Mr. Patterson, the child was disturbing other customers. I just helped calm the situation down. Don't give me excuses. And while we're on the subject, I need to warn you that your behavior has been questionable lately. Late arrivals, inappropriate attitude." "Sir, I have never been late, and I have always maintained a professional attitude. Are you contradicting me?" Patterson approached him intimidatingly. "Perhaps it's time to reevaluate whether you are suitable for this environment. We have standards here." Isabella saw Marcus take a deep breath, his hands clenching slightly. But when he spoke, his voice remained controlled. "I understand perfectly, sir. May I return to work?" When Marcus returned to the table, Isabella noticed that his hands were shaking slightly as he served the appetizer. Not from fear, she realized, but from a restrained anger she knew well. "Is everything okay?" she asked softly. Marcus looked her directly in the eye for the first time. "Ma'am, may I ask you a personal question?" "Of course. Why did you specifically choose me to serve you today?" Isabella hesitated. The question was deeper than it appeared. "Honestly, you were the only one who greeted me when I walked in. The others looked right through me, as if I were invisible." Marcus nodded slowly. "It's a feeling I know well." Over the next 2 hours, Isabella watched Marcus navigate a series of microaggressions: the sommelier who ignored his wine recommendations, the hostess who whispered to a colleague as he passed, the customer at table 5 who refused to be served by him. In each situation, Marcus maintained his dignity, treating each person with a professionalism that Isabella had rarely seen in executives at her own company. When dessert arrived, a new situation tested Marcus's limits. A drunk customer at the next table began making loud, racist comments, clearly directed at him. "Look at that. It's like they know how to serve real food." The man laughed to his companions. "In my day, people like that knew their place." Isabella saw Marcus's jaw clench, but he continued to discreetly organize the nearby tables. That's when a man deliberately knocked his wine glass onto the floor. "Hey kid, clean this up. That's what you're here for, isn't it?" Marcus grabbed a cloth and bent down to clean up the wine. At that moment, Isabella made a decision that would change everything. She stood up, discreetly took out her cell phone, and began recording. Not just the humiliation Marcus was suffering, but his dignified and professional reaction to the abuse. "Sorry for the mess, Marcus said calmly, finishing cleaning up. "Next time, be quicker," the man retorted, clearly expecting a reaction. Marcus simply nodded and walked away. But Isabella captured something no one else saw. The moment he paused in the hallway, leaned briefly against the wall, and took a deep breath, struggling to maintain his composure. In that instant, she knew she had found something rare. Not just a man who was good with children, but someone with an inner strength that had been tested and refined by adversity. What Isabella didn't know was that Marcus had also been watching her all night. He had noticed how she treated all the staff with respect, how she had left a generous tip for the cleaning crew, how her eyes had filled with tears when she saw the child happily eating broccoli. Two people were testing each other, neither knowing that they were both looking for exactly the same thing, someone real in a world full of masks. But while Isabella planned to reveal her true identity, Marcus kept a secret that would completely change the game. He had recognized who she was from the moment she walked into the restaurant. Isabella finished her meal but remained seated, pretending to check her emails while discreetly observing the dynamics of the restaurant. Each of Marcus's interactions revealed layers of a personality that fascinated her more and more. When an elderly lady at table 15 accidentally dropped her cane, Marcus was the only employee who immediately stepped in to help. When the same lady mentioned that it was her 80th birthday, he discreetly asked the kitchen to decorate her dessert, paying out of his own pocket. "Thompson." Patterson's harsh voice echoed through the hall once again. "Table 5 is complaining that you're taking too long with the order." Isabella watched Marcus discreetly check his watch. He had served the appetizer just 8 minutes ago. The normal preparation time was 15 minutes. He simply nodded and went to check with the kitchen. That's when Isabella made her second decision of the night. Discreetly, she called her personal assistant. "James, I need you to come to La Bernardine now and bring Michelle Chen from the corporate investigation team." While she waited, Isabella continued to document everything. Patterson deliberately passing on incorrect orders to Marcus. Other waiters getting the best tables while Marcus was left with the most difficult ones. Customers being subtly discouraged from asking to be served by him. 20 minutes later, James Hartford, her right-hand man for 10 years, entered the restaurant, accompanied by Michelle Chen, a former investigative journalist who now worked for Isabella's company doing due diligence on business partners. "Isabella, what's going on?" James asked, sitting discreetly at a nearby table. "Look at that waiter," she indicated Marcus with a subtle movement of her eyes. "I want you to document everything that's happening to him. Michelle, use your discreet camera. I'm suspecting systematic discrimination." Michelle immediately understood the situation. As an Asian woman who had faced prejudice in the journalism industry, she recognized the signs. Over the next 30 minutes, they witnessed a masterclass in subtle harassment. Patterson constantly found fault with Marcus's work. Plates that weren't hot enough, glasses with imaginary watermarks, poorly folded napkins. "This is textbook harassment," Michelle whispered to Isabella, discreetly adjusting her micro camera. "I'm capturing everything." It was then that Isabella noticed something that shocked her. Throughout the harassment, Marcus would occasionally glance in her direction, not with desperation or a plea for help, but with something that looked like recognition. When Patterson forced Marcus to redo an entire table because the knives weren't perfectly aligned, Isabella saw Marcus smile discreetly. It wasn't the smile of someone broken, but of someone who knew exactly what was going on. "James," she whispered, "I need information on Marcus Thompson's work records. How many times has he been reprimanded, fired? If he has ever filed complaints?" The answer came quickly. Impeccable record at all previous jobs. Never a complaint. "But Isabella, there's something interesting here." "What?" "He has a very active LinkedIn account. He's constantly connecting with journalists, civil rights activists, labor lawyers. And look at this. James discreetly showed her his cell phone. He posted about documenting work experiences for future reference 3 weeks ago. Isabella felt a chill down her spine. Marcus wasn't just a passive victim. He was building a case at that moment, as if sensing he was being watched. Marcus approached her table for the last time that evening. "Ma'am, I hope you enjoyed your meal. It was a pleasure serving you tonight." Isabella looked him straight in the eye. "Marcus, may I ask you a personal question?" "Of course." "How long have you known who I am?" The smile that crossed Marcus's face was the first genuine one of the evening. "From the moment you walked in, Ms. Rodriguez. Your photo was on the cover of Forbes last month. The 30 most powerful women in technology." Isabella felt the world spin. And yet you treated me as you would treat anyone else, because that's what decent people do." Marcus lowered his voice. "The question is, why is one of the most powerful women in the country pretending to be an ordinary customer in a restaurant where situations like the ones you witnessed today are known to occur?" Isabella was speechless. Marcus had completely turned the tables. "Maybe," Marcus continued, "we're both testing something. The difference is that I always knew I was being tested." Patterson approached once more. "Thompson, stop bothering the customer. Go clean the tables in the back." Marcus nodded politely, but before walking away, he discreetly left a folded piece of paper on Isabella's table. When she opened it, she found a phone number and a message. "If you're really interested in justice, call me tomorrow. I have something that might interest a woman who values honesty so much." Isabella watched Marcus walk away, realizing she had completely misjudged the situation. She wasn't the only one testing someone. She herself was being evaluated by a man who had seen through her. Charade from the very beginning, but chose to play along to see how far she would go. The question that troubled her now was simple. If Marcus had recognized one of the richest women in the country, why did he remain genuinely respectful instead of trying to impress her? And more importantly, what exactly did he have to show that he considered worthy of someone of her caliber's attention? The next day, Isabella called Marcus at 9 o'clock in the morning. Her voice sounded different on the phone, less controlled, more curious. "You said you had something to show me. I'm still interested." "Good. Can you meet me in Central Park near Bethesda? Fountain in an hour. And Miss Rodriguez, bring your team. I have a feeling you'll want to document what I have to show you." An hour later, Isabella arrived with James and Michelle. Marcus was waiting for them, sitting on a bench with a laptop and a bulky folder beside him. "First of all," Marcus said, standing up to greet them, "I have to confess something. It was no coincidence that I was working at La Bernardine yesterday." Isabella frowned. "What do you mean?" Marcus opened his laptop. 6 months ago, I started an investigation into systematic discrimination in high-end restaurants. La Bernardine was my third case. Patterson and management have a very clear pattern of harassment against black employees. The screen showed a detailed spreadsheet with dates, times, witnesses, and descriptions of incidents. Hundreds of entries over 6 months. "Marcus," Isabella said slowly, "are you a journalist?" "I'm an educator specializing in inclusive education. But after my sister was unfairly fired from the hospital where she worked as a nurse, I decided I needed to do something bigger than just teach children about justice." Marcus moved on to the next tab in the spreadsheet. "I discovered that 12 black employees have been fired from La Bernardine in the last 2 years, all on vague allegations of inappropriateness for the environment or performance issues. Meanwhile, the white employees with documented infractions remained employed." Michelle leaned in to get a better look. "Do you have evidence of all this?" Marcus smiled for the first time. "Miss Chen, you're not the only one who knows how to use discreet recording equipment." Over the past 6 months, I've documented every conversation, every discriminatory order, every prejudiced comment. He clicked on an audio folder. Patterson's voice echoed clearly. I don't want these guys serving the main tables anymore. Customers complain. Find an excuse and get rid of them. This was recorded 3 months ago, Marcus explained. Patterson talking to the human resources supervisor about Marcus Johnson, who was fired a week later on the grounds of inappropriate attitude. Isabella sat down on the bench, processing the information. Marcus, you used me to get more evidence. Not. Exactly. Marcus looked her straight in the eye. When I saw one of the most powerful women in the country choose to be served by me specifically, I thought maybe you were testing the environment too. I decided to play along to see how far you would go. James interjected. What if she hadn't gone all the way? What if she had just been another rich customer enjoying discrimination? Marcus opened a new folder on his laptop. Then I would have had another documented case and extra evidence of how privileged people enjoy watching others being humiliated. But Isabella was different. The screen now showed an official Department of Labor form. Last night after our meeting, I finalized my formal complaint. 6 months of investigation, 347 hours of recordings, 248 supporting documents. Isabella was impressed. 347 hours. Every shift, every conversation, every discriminatory order. Marcus closed his laptop. But here's the problem. Individual complaints rarely result in real change. Restaurants like La Bernardine have expensive lawyers and political influence. Michelle immediately understood where he was going with this. But if one of the most powerful women in tech publicly supported your complaint, exactly? The question is, do you really care about justice, or was yesterday just a sociological experiment for fun? Isabella took the laptop from Marcus's hands and began reviewing the files. Each entry in the spreadsheet told a story of humiliation, subtle discrimination, denied opportunities. It was a systematic pattern that went far beyond what she had witnessed the night before. Patterson isn't just a prejudiced manager, she said finally. He's a systematic predator, and he has protection from management. The restaurant's owner, Richard Whitmore, knows exactly what's going on. I have recordings of conversations where he instructs Patterson to keep the clientele standard high. Isabella stood up abruptly. James, cancel my afternoon schedule. Michelle, prepare complete recording equipment. Marcus, do you have Patterson's number? I do. Why? Because we're going to give Mr. Patterson exactly what he deserves, and we're going to do it today. 2 hours later, Isabella entered La Bernardine again, but this time she was impeccable in an Armani suit. Her hair perfectly styled, using her real identity. James accompanied her as her assistant, while Michelle discreetly positioned herself as a regular customer at a nearby table. Good afternoon. I'd like to speak to the manager, Patterson, Isabella said to the hostess. Of course, Miss May. I ask. Why? Isabella Rodriguez, CEO of Rodriguez Tech. I'm interested in discussing a corporate catering contract. Patterson appeared in less than 2 minutes, smiling from ear to ear. Miss Rodriguez, what an honor to welcome you to our establishment. Richard Whitmore told me we could talk about a partnership. Isabella kept a neutral expression. Mr. Patterson, last night I dined here as a regular customer. It was an eye-opening experience. We hope it was exceptional. Our standard of excellence is unmatched. I did observe some interesting patterns. Isabella took out her cell phone, especially regarding your waiter, Marcus Thompson. Patterson's smile faltered slightly. Thompson, I hope there weren't any problems. On the contrary, I observed your interaction with him throughout the evening. Very instructive. Isabella pressed play on a recording. Patterson's voice echoed through the restaurant. Thompson, you're here to serve, not to play teacher with the customer's children. Several nearby customers stopped talking. Patterson turned pale. "Miss Rodriguez, I can explain. Can you?" Isabella turned up the volume. Now playing was the recording of Patterson shouting, "How many times do I have to tell you that you're not a babysitter? This is a respectable institution, not a playground." The entire main hall was silent. Isabella turned to the nearby customers. "Ladies and gentlemen, you are hearing how this establishment treats black employees when they think no one important is watching." Patterson tried to approach to turn down the volume, but James positioned himself between him and her. "I'm not done." Isabella played a new recording. This time, the conversation between Patterson and the owner about keeping the clientele upscale by avoiding black waiters at the main tables. Indignant murmurs began to spread through the restaurant. Some customers got up to leave. Others pulled out their cell phones to record the scene. "Miss Rodriguez, please, can we talk in private? Like last night when you humiliated Marcus Thompson in private, thinking no one cared." Isabella turned to the entire room. "This establishment operates a system of systematic racial discrimination. I have 6 months of documented evidence." At that moment, Marcus walked through the front door, no longer dressed as a waiter, but in a simple suit with a briefcase in his hand. Marcus Thompson, educator and researcher on workplace discrimination. "Mr. Patterson, I believe we've met." Patterson tried to back away, but he was trapped between the tables and a growing crowd of indignant customers. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus said calmly, his voice carrying throughout the restaurant, "for 6 months, I have worked here documenting a systematic pattern of discrimination. Every humiliation, every prejudiced order, every opportunity denied based on skin color." He opened his briefcase and began spreading photos and documents across a nearby table. 12 black employees fired in 2 years. 0 white employees fired in the same period despite more serious documented infractions. A customer approached to look at the documents. "Is this real?" "Completely real," Isabella replied, and Patterson here was aware of everything. In fact, he was the main executor. Patterson finally found his voice. "You can't do this. I'm going to sue you for defamation." Marcus smiled serenely. "Mr. Patterson, defamation requires false information. Everything here is documented and verifiable. Incidentally, the labor attorneys representing the 12 dismissed employees would very much like to speak with you." Furthermore, Isabella added, "Rodriguez Tech has just permanently canceled any possibility of partnership with this establishment. And I can guarantee that none of the 200 companies in our network of contacts will do business here." The hostess approached nervously. "Mr. Patterson, Mr. Whitmore is on the phone. He says he needs to speak with you urgently." Patterson knew his career was over. In 20 minutes, his systematic discrimination had been publicly exposed to a room full of influential clients, documented by professional equipment, and witnessed by the CEO of one of the largest technology companies in the country. "Marcus," Isabella said, extending her hand to him, "I believe we have a conversation to finish about giving my twins the father they deserve." Marcus smiled, shaking her hand. "Miss Rodriguez, I believe we both passed the test," as Patterson desperately tried to explain the situation on the phone to his boss, and customers continued to walk out in protest. A new reality took shape in that salon. Justice had been served, not with anger or vengeance, but with intelligence, documentation, and the courage of 2 people who refused to accept that prejudice was just the way things are. But the real transformation was just beginning, because sometimes finding justice is only the first step in building something much greater, a family based not on tests or disguises, but on mutual recognition of values that truly matter. 6 months later, Patterson was unemployed and being sued for employment discrimination. Le Bernardin closed after a viral scandal, losing its operating license. Richard Whitmore sold the property in a forced liquidation. Marcus now ran Rodriguez Tech's social inclusion program. Turning his passion for education into corporate policy, Isabella discovered that her twins, Sophia and Diego, adored Uncle Marcus, who taught them about justice through stories. "Mommy, is Marcus going to be our new daddy?" Sophia asked during family dinner. Isabella smiled, watching Marcus help Diego with his homework. "What do you think? He's different from the other men you've introduced us to," Diego said. "He really listens to us." Marcus approached. "Isabella, can I talk to you in the garden?" He held her hands. "I know we started out testing each other, but I've discovered something real. I want to build a family based on honesty, not experiments." "Me too," she replied. "I've learned that genuine people reveal their character in adversity, not in abundance." Year later, the Rodriguez Foundation, run jointly by Isabella and Marcus, had already helped 200 Black professionals find decent jobs. Patterson tried to sue for defamation, but lost after 20 former employees testified against him. Marcus turned his traumatic experience into his life's mission. Isabella discovered that the best father for her children was not the one who impressed with money, but the one who demonstrated values when no one was looking. True wealth is not in what we own, but in who we choose to have by our side during storms. Sometimes we need to pretend to be someone else to discover who we really are and, above all, to recognize authenticity in a world full of masks.